In the post-war era, prosperity and optimism weren't the only thing growing. Our church had grown into a position to provide the most important thing to those in need, a home. There was no cause too small, no location out of reach, no person unworthy. Our hard-working community provided homes for weary travellers, homeless children, youth, families and aged citizens. Many homes still stand today. In 1950, the very first home was purchased, a Christian guest house in Spring Hill called Burdeu House. Run under the outstanding leadership of Clive Burdeu, this house marked the first step in Churches of Christ's pathway to care for the most vulnerable. Then, in 1954, the introduction of federal government subsidies for aged people's homes unlocked the door for fast and prolific growth in church-run homes. Now, with even more financial resources, real impact could be made. The first church to accept the offer was Toowoomba Church of Christ, and they soon opened Milo House in 1958. As financial support from the federal and state government increased from the 1960s through to current times, the church continued to provide a broader aged care offering. And while financial support made a big difference, the spirit of providing homes had existed since the early foundational days. Conference records from 1921 show that the Brotherhood gave support to an interdenominational home for aged persons. Partnership with the government at both federal and state level also allowed the churches to greatly enlarge their support for children and families. In the late 1960s, the Maryborough Church was moved by compassion for the tragic plight of a family of 8 children, forced to separate into different foster care homes across the state. A church member had noticed the children missing from Sunday school. Concerned, they paid a visit to the family home to find that the mother had left Maryborough and the children were fending for themselves. Splitting up the vulnerable children did not sit well with the church, so they took action. Through a collaborative effort between the church, who donated the land, the Lions Club of Maryborough, who raised the funds, the Queensland Government, who provided funding and furniture, as well as Churches of Christ Care, who provided guidance and expertise, the first family group home was opened in 1970. Opened completely debt-free, this first home allowed for the children to be reunited. They were cared for by the very first house parents and church members, Jim and Ann Deutschman. The success of the Maryborough Church spurred on other churches to act and build group homes to care for at-risk children. Homes subsequently opened in Mackay in 1976 and Bundaberg in 1980. While these buildings put a roof over the head of those in need, it was the people in our churches sharing the message and love of Jesus that transformed lives. People like nurse Beverly Grenfell, who campaigned for an aged care facility in southwest Queensland. Locals like Paul and Nancy Young, who donated much-needed funds and land. And leaders like Clive Burdeu. The genuine care and commitment they displayed is still an inspiration to this day. We celebrate these well-known people from our history, as well as everyday locals that did their bit to help out. These simple acts of expressing faith and love through action really speak to the heart of the Churches of Christ movement, from our origins to this day.